Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. Today we're talking about Y the Last Man, Volume 2, Cycles. Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent, and today we're talking about Volume 2 of Y the Last Man, entitled Cycles. If you're reading this in the newer trades, this is the second half of the first book, so to speak. It's also in the compendium, the omnibus, all this other stuff. But before we get into the review, let me ask you to please do one thing. Please subscribe. Helps me out, helps the channel grow, lets you know when I drop new videos, all that good stuff. Now, Y the Last Man? I did a whole rambling review on the first volume, and I didn't even tell you what the book was about. I mean, if you've read Y the Last Man, I guess you know what the book's about. It's about the guy, the last man on Earth, the last two males, Yorick and Ampersand. Is he a capuchin monkey, I believe, right? But it's pretty interesting here. There, at least in this old volume, this is the original trade, published in 2003, many years ago. The pages are kind of starting to yellow a little bit. I'm almost like thinking about maybe upgrading or not. I don't know, but it's cool because there's a little introduction here, kind of like a recap of what happened in the first volume, and it gives you like a better picture of what the world is like, entirely, as opposed to what they were able to illustrate in the first volume. So I'm not sure if this was included in the original series and the original issues, but it gives a bigger context of like how fucked the world may be at this point in time. So the gender side exterminated 48% of the global population, 2.9 billion men, 495 of the Fortune 500 CEOs are now dead. This is 2002, so these numbers are probably way out of date. But just this is what all those CEOs are dead. 99% of the world's landowners are dead. 95% of commercial pilots, ship captains, 92% of violent felons. 99% of all mechanics, electricians, construction workers are all dead, although 51% of the agricultural labor force is still alive. All the soldiers are dead except, Spain, Germany, United States, Israel, Norway, Australia, Sweden at the time are the only ones who had women in their military, so those are the only militaries left, basically. And Israel is in a different thing because if you know anything about Israel, you know that once you turn 18, I believe you have to go and serve with the Israeli Defense Force. I think it's for 2 years. If you look at Gal Gadot's history or whatever, she's been talking about it in her past, about what she learned with serving for her country and stuff like that. It's compulsory. It's not an option. So like over there, you graduate high school, you go serve for the military, and then you go to college after that. Like there's no choice. But that's part of their culture. So that's where we get Alter in this book. She is one of these Israeli Defense Force commanders, and she's on some mission to kill Yorick for some unknown reason. And she's being fed information by someone within the government. It's got to be from the White House. We just see like that the person's arm. It's probably a woman, right? It's Y the Last Man. The woman's arm on the radio, but we don't know the identity of it yet. But there's a few people in the White House that we knew about Yorick in the last volume. Some senators' wives, congressmen's wives, or Congress people, representatives, the assistants, Secret Service, could be anybody in the White House that we met in that first volume, but somehow has an exact location on where Yorick is. So the other question is, not only does this person know where Yorick is at all times somehow, but how is that person getting information, which makes me think that this person is inside the culprit ring. If Agent 355, my favorite character in the whole book, is feeding information back to her bosses, and then that is somehow getting leaked back to Alter and her brigade here. But this is kind of an interesting little book. It gives you more of an idea of like how the world might function. They're trading stuff to get on a train and go to California. Unfortunately, there's a fight on the train, and they get booted off of it in Ohio, and stumble across a town that's seemingly like, Pleasantville, USA. Like, there's still power, there's still grocery stores, there's still a working hospital, all these things. And then you come to find out that the town is actually run by ex-cons. There was like a women's prison next door, and when everything happened on Men Death Day, they let the prisoners out, and I guess all the guards left, so they're all living in the old houses of that town, and kept it up and running and stuff. I think this is almost 2-3 months later. I know the time jump in the first book said like 2 months later he actually got to DC. So we don't really get a like a timestamp. It just says like now, right? Or 8 hours later is what we get. But we don't get a timestamp of like where Yorick is in the journey from like the Death Day or whatever, when everything went down in issue number 1. So I really like this story. It's self-contained. You know, half of it is them getting on the train and getting off, and then the second half is about the town with the women. And you actually have the first idea of Yorick, like, you know, coming across a woman who wants to have sex with him, and, you know, not because she's horny, but because she's, you know, really attracted to him, you know, romantically, and he has to hold himself back because he's still that committed to Beth, who lives half the world away, and we don't even know if she's alive. Like, you know, you could have been killed by a plane crashing. So you got to think about on Death Day, of all the men, all the planes came crashing down and killed everybody on board, men, women, and children. You know, all the trains maybe crashed, all the automobiles crashed, not all, but a lot of them. So the death toll from this event is not just 58, 51% of the world, or whatever the number was at the time, 50%, whatever, of the world dying, but it's all the like consequential deaths of those people dying in the positions they were in: airline pilots, cab drivers, train conductors, you know, bus drivers, whatever. If you're in charge of a motor vehicle and you're a man and you died, you probably crashed and ended up killing everybody on board, or a number of people on board who weren't also men, women, little girls, all that stuff. So it's a little more than 50% of the world's population that has died because of all these, you know, plane crashes and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting to see how to have that explained in the very beginning of this, like, you know, kind of forward like recap, and be like, oh, yeah, this is kind of a worse situation than one might think. But it's cool. Also in this book, you get a little bit more into the Amazons with Hero and I think her name is Lydia, and who's the leader of the Amazons, who has all these ideas about men and how women are, when their little brother, you see your little brother or big brother's penis when you're a young child, that it's impressed upon you and you thought it was gross, and it like, you know, tortures you. All these weird, like, really radical ideas that this Lydia person has come up with, that she's then brainwashed all these other, or not Lydia, Victoria, this Victoria woman has come up with, and she's brainwashing the Amazons with these ideas and starving them, giving them rations and keeping them, you know, close to her. Especially Hero, she gives her like a couple, looks like protein or candy bars, and Hero is just like, oh, I love you, Victoria, because she's actually getting real food. Another thing these Amazons have done is they've cut off one of their breasts, and this was something in the Greek myths that the Amazons did to better draw their bow. So like if you're right-handed, basically you would cut off your right breast so that you would hold your bow out in your left hand, and you'd be able to draw the bowstring all the way back across your entire chest, basically. And usually you hold it up here by your arm, but since your breast is out of the way, the idea was the bowstring doesn't have to like go past it. So if you're a woman with 2 breasts, you'd probably only be able to draw it back to here, because it would get caught in between or something like that. But if you cut off one, you'd be able to draw it back further, because there's nothing interfering with that bowstring draw, you know, right here, if you're able to draw it back all the way. So that's where the, you know, them cutting off one of their breasts comes from, is really for attack, right? For self-defense and all that, and operating a bow and arrow. Why they're doing it now, you know, Yorick is Hero is the only one with a bow, so I could see why she would need to do it, but apparently every Amazon in this group does it because of the name and this idea that they're, I guess, more militant or something like that. So, but really the only Amazon they draw with this, like, you know, outfit is Hero. She jumps in the pages, and she's got like her shirt, you know, they're constantly reinforcing this idea that she's missing one of her breasts because her shirt's open. They're, you know, they're showing her navel and stuff like that. Whereas you go to Victoria, and the leader here is like she's in a fucking turtleneck, and not really drawn any differently than a regular woman, to give you that idea that she's like, you know, she herself has also cut off one of her breasts. So it's a little weird. They're just reinforcing that Hero is like this other person, basically. She is not the person that you met in issue 1 she was an EMT on top of a firefighter trying to fuck him in the ambulance kind of thing. She's a totally different person, and she has been brainwashed over the last couple months. So yeah, I did like how you see how the Amazons have been like brainwashed in the ideas that they're swallowing, you know, and getting fed from this Victoria person the entire time. All men are evil, the old ways are evil, topple the patriarchy, stuff that you hear nowadays too, but just in a really extreme, radical way. When the earth is faced with this crisis, that they're more about upturning everything, instead of restoring the world to some semblance of normal, so that people can survive. They'd rather, you know, kill people and really change the ideas before they get to restoring civilization, instead of doing that after. So it's kind of weird. It doesn't seem like the Amazons are a national group. It just seems like it's this little gaggle of women, you know, this little gang. Maybe there's a couple of them at least following them around. You don't really get like a full number. You just see a picture of, you know, hey, there's a group of women out there, a group of Amazons. But they're saying that there's 4 women in the town to every one of the Amazons at least. So not that big a group, but they did bring a group with them to hunt down Yorick. And for a while there too, actually I take it back, here's an Amazon in the back here. You can also see she's also, they've drawn her so that you can see that she cut off one of her breasts as well. So it's not just Hero. Actually no, I'm totally wrong. It's very subtle, very subtle. So if you look closely, you can see, like, you know, there's shading here, no shading over here. This woman has shading on one side and less on the other. So there's just, with Hero, they're making it like really, really obvious, really apparent that she's done this to reinforce this idea that she's been changed radically. But I guess all the Amazons are doing it, and Pia Guerra and Jose Marzan Jr. are drawing them consistently. So I take it back. I just noticed it because Hero's, like, you know, got her shirt open all the time in this book, at least. So yeah, I mean, I'm having fun with this book. The good part about this book, and maybe the bad part too, is that it is really easy to read. And I'm a fast reader, so I read it really fast. Like, I think I read it's 5 issues, 6 through 10. I think I read it in like maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. But I've never been one of those like comic book readers that like looks at every panel lovingly, longingly, staring at the art. It's more about the story to me. And maybe that's what helped me learn to read so fast, was growing up reading comic books and just having a few words on the page and learning to move from balloon to balloon to balloon quickly. Even though I can appreciate the art, and I do appreciate it, I see all the details, I'm not like stopping slowly to read a word balloon and then look at the entire panel and then move to the other one. My brain is like boom, 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 and then I'll go back and look at it later when I'm looking at style. But it still makes an impression on me. So I guess if you're a fast reader, you know, if you're buying one of these, if you're buying them individually, like this was $12.95 20 years ago, not a bad price for that. Now 5 issues would cost you $20, and you might get upset that you read through it that fast. But you might also go, well, that was really good because I was so entranced I read it that fast. So that may be one of the weird things about Y: The Last Man, is for me at least, they are really quick reads, these little trades, because I'm such a fast reader and because I'm so engrossed in the story. So we're off to a good start. We've encountered our first band of trouble over in over in Ohio, and we've had the setup for the next arc. I think is coming up with the whole thing about the the Soyuz is going to land in Kansas, and here we see in the International Space Station there's still a couple guys left alive up top, and they're coming on their way down. So I think we're going to intersect with them as well. So we will find out if they land, are they going to survive? We don't know, but we're going to find out in future volumes. So Y: The Last Man Volume 2 cycles. I think it was fun. I had a whole lot of fun reading it. It's still good. It's still good. So yeah, let me know what you think of Why the Last Man down below, and we'll continue our read along in another video.